Hey, there we go. We're live on time, pretty much for the most part. I was out of practice today. It was there was a nice breeze. It was hot, as almost every single one of you know. We got to interview Cal McNair and Hannah McNair together after the practice. Sean Pendergast and I did. That'll air at 7 a.m. tomorrow, Thursday, on Sports Radio 610. You can watch on the YouTube channel. Just search Sports Radio 610. But it was a good day. It was a good day for the offense. It was and it's always all right. It's a good day for the offense or the defense. With this team and with the receiving weaponry we have, it's fine. I don't worry about the defense. The couple plays that concerned me were um, Stephon Diggs caught a pass over the middle, a short pass where he was just wide open. The middle of the field was completely open, so I didn't get to see what the coverage was or anything. But when you have Christian Harris out and something's right where a linebacker might be standing, start to get a little bit concerned about that. That's still an ongoing and lingering issue. Will Anderson didn't practice with his lingering ankle issue, so they take on the LA Rams in a joint practice tomorrow. I'm guessing that this will basically be like the preseason game for most of the starters because you're able to get a boatload of reps. Jimmy Ward. Um, Jimmy Ward, as we know, sometimes struggles with limiting or throttling back his physicality, and I'm especially intrigued to watch him in a joint practice this year, just because remember last year the joint practice was canceled with the Saints. Jimmy is Jimmy's had some run-ins and altercations with his own teammates, but some of you might remember in 2018 he got into it with DeAndre Hopkins. So today, Jimmy was at the podium and he was asked a couple questions about finding that balance. But I went back and I got some video from Paul Gallant's Twitter account from video that they'd taken back then. Here's Jimmy Ward talking about finding that balance, but also some footage of that memorable day.
Mindset or intensity you have to recognize going into that to do what you need to do, but not things you don't need to do?
I see where you're getting at. No, just attack the day, just like every other camp day, and try to go out there and get better, and just try to keep it clean and just be on my assignment and make sure I be on my details as well.
How do you find that balance in between not being as physical as you want to be and knowing that you have to lay off just a little bit?
I gotta find that balance still.
Yeah, he's mischievous. Jimmy is. I don't know. I don't know what to expect about the Rams practice. Look, the Rams will not. I'd be incredibly surprised if Puka Nacua just shows up for this practice with his knee injury. Matt Stafford started practicing, I believe, a couple days ago. So hopefully we see Matt Stafford out there, and they've got some really good players over there. So I'm excited to see the Texans offense versus them. D'Amico spoke about just how they're going to handle these joint practices with one key element here.
It'll be a lot of situational football, talking with Coach McVay. We just want to work situations that probably normally wouldn't come up or things that we can manufacture ourselves and get just good, clean work amongst two really good teams. So I'm excited. Our guys are excited to work with the Rams. They have a ton of respect for Coach McVay and what he's done throughout his career.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing, the situational football, because in the preseason games, you don't get to dictate what situation guys are going to be in. You don't get to, you don't get the benefit of getting 10 short yardage reps with your ones or third and long versus a certain defensive backfield, all that. So I would imagine McVay, McVay and D'Amico are. I was about to say McVay's a really positive guy. He's a high energy guy. He's not quite as much on the positive scale as like a Mike McDaniel or a D'Amico Ryans, but they're like-minded types. There are these new age, new vamped coaches where it's all high energy and positivity all the time. Except for McVay's got a little bit of a dark side to him. That's where the genius creeps in. I think it's hard to have the genius and not having a little bit of a dark side all at the same time. But I'm happy to see them out there. I was actually surprised at the practice times at 9 a.m. tomorrow because that'll be 7 a.m. LA time. And I know those guys have to get ready to to play games that are early on their body clock, but that seems extreme. I doubt they're practicing at 7 a.m. typically over there. So hopefully the Rams are sharp at least. One big thing, because I had to miss practice all last week, and then obviously I wasn't up at the practices in Cleveland, is, man, Laramie Tunsil being out there makes a big difference. And more so than just his play at left tackle, I think the way that he's going to complement and improve the play of Kenyon Green next to him, the fact that you didn't have defensive ends careening off the edge all the time. Will Anderson wasn't out there, but it's a lot cleaner and crisper. I talked to DJ Bieneme about it, because he was up in Cleveland. And he's like, yeah, when the offense started looking a lot crisper in practice, that kind of coincided with Laramie Tunsil. And when he came back, D'Amico talked about Laramie Tunsil briefly.
Yeah, Laramie is one of the best tackles in the league. So having him back out here working with us, I mean, he's done a phenomenal job. He's been top tackle in this throughout his entire career. He's done a great job here practicing. He's looking like himself. He's doing a really great job of leading that group, O-line group. So I'm happy to just see all those guys working together, right? That's how you build that continuity. Guys have to be out there, be in the fire together, and they've been doing that for the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, it does. It looks a lot better with Laramie out there. So, and I don't know if you guys will get to see Laramie Tunsil in the preseason game. I suspect not. That there's Laramie's going to practice when he needs to practice, and he is still coming back from a knee injury. It just looks a lot better. I'm going to talk a little bit about where I worry about the difference between training camp and full tackle football sometimes, specifically at certain positions. But we'll talk about that maybe when Titus Howard speaks. But Davis Mills, notable today, and this boded well for depth. Davis Mills himself. And I think especially John Mechie. I'll just throw a couple of these clips up here. Long touchdown pass to John Mechie and a long touchdown pass to Xavier Hutchinson. And these were captured by the Lead Houston. Really good Twitter account, and they have a YouTube channel too. A couple of real dedicated guys that they're out there at training camp all the time taking video.
Yeah, Davis made some big plays for us.
Son of a bitch. Oh, here we go.
He stepped.
All right. He's complimenting Davis, and then the plays will play.
Then made big-time throws. He commanded the offense really well. I think it was exciting to have him back, seeing the plays that he was able to make. That was pretty cool.
That's John Mechie. Yeah, so the cool thing about that is obviously you can't tell from that that footage. John Mechie, I was over on the other sideline, and Cody Stutes got a really good look at it. I didn't get as good a look at it. It looked like an impressive catch to me by John Mechie, but Cody said that it actually bounced off of CJ Henderson's forearm, and Mechie maintained concentration and pulled it in, which is a stark departure from the issues that we were having with John Mechie for most of training camp with a lot of the drops. I think that whatever we were hoping for with John Mechie, to where things would kind of click for him, it's happened big time over the last couple of weeks. So that's been really nice to see. I was starting to get down in the dumps about John Mechie because we're all pulling for him. Been through a 2-year cancer ordeal, looked physically better in a lot of the individual drills and 7-on-7, but just hadn't shown up in either the team drills or the actual game situations, and it does look like something's clicked. So I'm back over towards being very surprised if he's released from this team. Xavier Hutchinson, same thing on his play. He had to one arm that, and it was a contested ball, and he's been very consistently good on the competitive catches. He's obviously really integrated into the offense. And the other part of that equation there, for those two plays, is Davis Mills. After he was all like suddenly and oddly not practicing, and we started to kind of wonder, is it possible that he's getting traded? I don't think so. Caserio in the sideline interview before the game last week I think it was with John Harris, he said pretty emphatically Davis Mills is the backup quarterback. So I don't know if he plays in the game at all, but the battle for third string quarterback, I'll be surprised if it doesn't go to Case Keenum. Tim Boyle, he's got a live arm in a lot of ways, but I don't know if the knowledge of the offense and the consistency is quite there, especially if you want a guy as your third string quarterback. The big difference would be if, some teams, I remember Rick Smith felt that way. He felt like if you keep a third quarterback, it should be somebody that you think has upside and potential as a future quarterback. Last year, even though Davis was second on the depth chart, we found out that he was actually the third string quarterback. So Davis would have been that young developmental guy last year. This year, if they kept Case, it's going to be as a guy that they still trust that they can put in the game. But I think especially as a mentor to the younger quarterbacks, as a mentor to, CJ Stroud himself, obviously, but then also the receivers. Sean and I talked to Matt Schaub before the game last week, and it was a good conversation. I think he's going to be really good in media. We had a nice conversation with him. And one of the things he talked about was his second go round in Atlanta. The last couple of years he was in the NFL. You had Matt Ryan there. Matt Ryan was a veteran and, was trying to learn Kyle Shanahan's offense still. And Schaub could help him with that. But Schaub said his greatest asset was, aside from being a backup quarterback, was in helping out the receivers, guys having questions. And instead of Matt Ryan having to answer all the questions, Schaub could kind of be a teacher in that regard. And I could totally see Case Keenum doing that. Damien Pierce, since we have to talk about Damien Pierce, and this pains me because I love Damien Pierce as well. And plus, let me just say this up front. I feel like, because in sports, sometimes the most annoying thing is when people feel like everything has to be black and white and yes or no. This is how I currently feel about the state of the Texans rushing offense. I think that Damien Pierce is just not the same guy he was a couple of years ago. But I also think that there are blocking issues. So when I say that, when I point out issues with the blocking in the game the other night, it's not like I'm saying it to excuse or brush off the struggles that Damien is having. It's that those two things can both coexist. You can have bad blocking, but also Damien isn't hitting the hole the same way he used to. He's not breaking tackles. I really feel at this point that it's all about, at least a huge part of it might be body weight. And just simply that his rookie year, he was a lot heavier than he is now. He lost weight going into camp last year, and then he lost weight again coming into camp this year. And I think maybe he's gained some foot speed, but he's lost that superpower of his, which was breaking tackles and be a bruising physical runner. So there were plays in that game, and I went over the film yesterday. If you guys haven't seen the film, I broke down some of them. Watching it again, I was watching it with Clint Sterner earlier. I was talking to my friend Drew Hodgson. I was trying to make some excuses for Damien in some of those plays, but the fact of the matter is at some point, sometimes you just got to beat a guy. Sometimes you got to squeeze through a small hole, and Damien's not running with that same fierceness. So I asked D'Amico today, I phrased it as, what is D'Amico's biggest obstacle right now? Excuse me. I said, what is Damien's biggest obstacle right now? First one. There we go.
Yeah, Damien, we got to get him some ops in the game, to get him some more ops running the football. But Damien's done a great job out here at practice. I don't think everybody's seen that in the game because, when he had his opportunities, we got guys unblocked in the hole, so he doesn't have a chance to really get started. So, we just have to give him more opportunities, but we have to block it better up front so he does have the opportunities to make some plays in the running game.
Okay, so I want to address that, but just real quick to address this because it's a common misconception, I think. Says he's not good in the zone scheme. He's been bad on gap scheme stuff too. It's not like when Damien's in there, they're pulling guards, they're running. It was single back power, but it was power. There's something missing. It's not just a zone scheme issue. It's flat out not. Now, I agree with you that he really struggles on the outside zone, but it's all varieties of run right now where he's just not the same guy. So again, two things can be true. Yes, he struggles in the zone scheme, but yes, he's struggling with other things. D'Amico, in answering that question, it's either that D'Amico's, I think, just protecting Damien and doesn't want to be critical of him. He's very, very rarely critical of the players. And, so I think there's that. He almost looks uncomfortable when he's been asking asked questions about the run game. But also, the one thing I worry, because we saw this at the beginning of last year, very early in the season last year, I told Sean Pendergast, like, look, Devin Singletary is going to be the main running back here at some point. Because I've seen this so many times. I've seen it before, just in other situations, that it just wasn't clicking. And it took them a long time to figure that out. It really wasn't until Damien got injured that it forced their hand. So what I worry about is that in a GM and head coach relationship, usually you can cover each other's blind spots, and the GM's going to see some things that maybe the coach has a blind spot for, and vice versa. I worry that both of them might like Damien so much and also maybe have a blind spot for him, because it's not like he hasn't had opportunities. He's had 7 carries in the preseason this year. He had all of last season, and this year it doesn't look any different than it looked last season so far. So that's the hard part. The other part of it is that, I succumb to this too. In practice, he has looked good. He's looked really good in practice. But again, his superpower was breaking tackles. You don't have to break any tackles in practice. You don't have to. And I think sometimes that's why I always say training camp lies. Like, training camp practices, they lie sometimes because they reduce to such an extreme degree the physical element of the game. So sometimes guys who are really physical don't really flash in the training camp practices that much because they can't use that physicality. But likewise, there's other times where a guy's lack of physicality doesn't show up until it's in the games. So yes, I believe I think Damien looks good out at practice. But if I flash back to earlier in camp and I go over it, and now I'm thinking about, like, man, these guys are thudding up a lot. They're not tackling, but Damien's been on the ground a lot when he's been getting thudded. He pops right up and keeps running, but it's not what you would have seen out of Damien his rookie year. So that's and maybe they're waiting for it to click with him, but we'll see. Joe Mixon, and this is what I'm also guilty of. I keep forgetting that Joe Mixon is coming back, and Joe Mixon was out there at practice today. It looks completely different when Joe Mixon is in there versus anybody else. He moves differently. He's got a decisiveness about him. He's a big human being who moves better than all the other running backs. So that's going to overcome some of the issues that I see with the blocking right now. The rest of the issues of the blocking are going to have to come with the young guys getting better, and then just simply cohesion. And we'll hear from Titus Howard in a little bit. But here's Joe Mixon, just talking about the adjustment to Houston.
Shit, man, I feel good. Only thing is, getting used to this heat. It's hard getting used to that. But other than that, man, getting my legs up under me and able to get that chemistry with the O-line and receivers, and obviously CJ, man, feel great.
Yeah, and like Joe Mixon took a few questions. He's not a man of many words, which I like, and he just looks really good out there. I think having Laramie Tunsil and Joe Mixon out there together, because remember, Joe Mixon, with his experience and his physicality, is a good pass blocker as well. So that helps CJ out. A lot of times, it's the mental errors by running backs. A lot of times that result in sacks more so than even the physical breakdown. So he's very capable in that regard. Just those two veterans being in the offense, and yeah, it's only practice. Just cautioned against this, but you can just tell that the operation's different. You can just tell it's a different deal. The pass rush, especially, obviously, but in the run game too. It's just the timing and the cohesion. Everything just clicks a little bit better. Jimmy Ward asked about Kalen Bullock. This is one of the questions I wanted to get to. Just I want to talk about Jalen Petrie and Kalen Bullock a little bit. But this is Jimmy Ward on Kalen Bullock, the rookie safety.
Yes, he's a pretty big safety. Like 6'2", 6'3", and then he has a lot of range too. Pretty fast. So just like how he sees the quarterback and sees the quarterback steps back there. Like I feel like it's dynamic and it's elite.
Yeah, and it is elite. That's they haven't shown the same trust in Kalen Bullock that they have in Kamari Lassiter, and I don't think it has anything to do with anything bad. It's just that I think Kalen Bullock is a little bit more on the normal promising rookie side of things. And they also have, when they're in base defense, they've got Jalen Petrie playing safety and Jimmy Ward playing safety. They're going to be able to work Kalen Bullock, I think, in as they see fit and use the other guys. So Kalen Bullock might end up playing a boatload in the first game. He might see spot duty. I'm not 100% certain right now, but I think they want to use him as much as possible, as early as possible, because he adds a ranginess that I was talking to Clint about this today too, because you guys that follow the channel know that one of the things that petrifies me about Jalen Petrie is I love him when he's playing nickel linebacker. I don't want him up on the line playing man coverage versus really good receivers as a slot corner. So your nickelback can be kind of a cornerback type, or he can be kind of a linebacker type. I think Jalen's more of the linebacker type. But when you have a rangy safety like Kalen Bullock, it can help you do a lot, and you can put Jalen Petrie in situations where as long as he's playing the defense correctly, he's got safety help over the top. They can play 2-man. They can do a lot of things to mix and match. But they got to be able to put Jalen Petrie up on the line at times in the face of wide receivers if they want to use him as a blitzer. There's got to be a reason he's up there more than just blitzing. And they can disguise some of the coverages, but he's going to be tasked with man coverage at times on wide receivers. If it's a guy like Stephon Diggs, I don't think they'll be doing it, but it's going to be interesting. That'll be a cat and mouse game throughout the season, is like just exactly how much do we test ourselves with Jalen Petrie's man coverage ability versus like, hey, how much do we still really want to be able to disguise with him and everything? Kalen Bullock theoretically could help with that a lot, especially if he's paired up with Jimmy Ward, smart dude that can, get a young player set up right. Here's Titus Howard. Okay, so here's Titus Howard on Damien Pierce.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, he ain't got that many reps, and he didn't get that many reps with the starters too. So I mean, you got to put that into play. So. Cause we didn't really run the ball that much last game. It was a lot of pass plays. So, and he's been putting work in practice. So, a lot of people not seeing that. So they only can see what they see, when we go out on the game. So, I mean, it can't really judge him off that. There's a small sample size to the stuff that he's done and the work he put in. So he's going to be just fine.
Yeah, and it is true that he hasn't had a lot of time behind the starting offensive line, because in that first preseason game that he played in, we had guys playing a little bit out of position. Patterson was playing right guard. Patterson's got to be able to play center and both guard positions, but he doesn't typically, as I believe somebody very close to him pointed this out to me, he's never actually played right guard in any game, including high school before that point. There's somebody who knew his high school career intimately. Yeah, but so it wasn't ideal. And then you had Broker playing right tackle. I think Broker's more of a guard. So it's a partial excuse. It's and then last week there was bad blocking on a couple of those plays. There was adequate blocking on another couple. I'm just the 1 yard per carry, over the course of a one game or what have you, if he didn't have the history he did last year, it's hard to excuse that with poor blocking just when he's supposed to be a guy who's capable of breaking tackles. He's supposed to be capable of beating at least one guy in the open field. That's where we haven't seen any of that same juice in game situations. And I don't know if they'd be actively trying to trade him right now, or if they're just kind of thinking, hey, look what happened with Mechie. It clicked for him. But with Damien, I feel like it's, Mechie had shown physical promise. Like he'd shown improvement as an athlete, where Damien he's lost weight and his feet look real quick and everything, but it's not enough to overcome his loss of power from how he looks now versus then. So that's it for Damien. I hope this is all stupid and somehow it clicks for him against the Rams, but it's got to be in tackle football. It's running back. It doesn't. The practices doing good stuff in practice when you're not getting tackled as a running back tells you very, very little if physicality is your calling card. Titus Howard making a good point here, which I knew, but I hadn't really thought about.
Even though 5 starters were here last year, I mean, the starting 5 we have right now, haven't played a regular season game together. We practiced a couple times, but I got hurt early on in camp last year, so we was not able to, continue to build that camaraderie. But we've been able to do it all camp. It's been getting better for us every day. We've been doing some good stuff. So I'm excited to see, what this group can do for the team. Hopefully take us over the hump that we need to be.
Yeah. As far as all 5 of them playing together, if you go to the preseason game and in practice, I think it too at times, where it's the younger guys just, whether it's zone scheme or gap scheme or whatever else, because the team also doesn't, like, they don't, aside from any discussion about Damien Pierce, Kyle Shanahan took Gary Kubiak's offense and very much diversified it. When back in the day when it was Kubiak and Shanahan, they had like 2 run plays. It was inside zone and outside zone, and they had to evolve. And Kyle Shanahan was a big part of that. Mike Sherman actually did some of it before Shanahan got involved. But just in knowing that sometimes, especially down in the red zone, you just got to load up. I mean, you got to pull a guard, you got to double team some people, that you can't just do zone all the time because there's not enough power to it. So they just need to be more cohesive. And there's times when the center and the guard are working together and one's supposed to be working up to a linebacker, the timing's just not right. Like, the guys are trying to be physical, so they're sticking on a block. Like, the center is sticking on a block when really he should be releasing up to a linebacker. And there's other times where guys just don't look like the footwork's quite right, especially with the younger guys. And that's something that is going to be a work in progress. And hopefully, I'm almost wondering too, when you have Joe Mixon back there and you can run things the way they really should look, if that helps getting the feedback from Joe Mixon and everything else. I'm not panicking about it right now. They can be a really, really good offense the way they're playing right now, but to be an elite offense, you've got to be able to run the football when you need to run the football. It can't just be like, yeah, we take advantage of opportunities when there's light boxes because the passing game is so big. You got to be able to run the football down in the red zone when things get compressed if you want to be elite. And it's really still a big challenge for Bobby Slowick because he's demonstrated that he can be the architect of a threatening passing attack. But he hasn't done it with the run game yet. And then Chris Strausser, the offensive line coach, also. But it's hard to change offensive line coaches in the middle of the season, obviously. A couple other notes from practice, combination of my own. And I go to Cody Stutz at HoustonFootball.com. He sends out a daily newsletter. It's a pay site, but I don't think it's a lot. I can't remember how much it is. It's enough that it's cheap enough that I don't remember what it is. I don't like every month look at it and think, it's very, very good info. I told you already, he had seen the Xavier Hutchinson catch and the John Matt. I saw both of them. Cody saw them in much better detail, and just pointed out that they were both contested catches. John Mechie caught it as it caromed off of C.J. Henderson's forearm. What was the other thing that I saw out there that I wanted to point out? Khalil Davis showed up in the backfield like very quickly. I'll be real surprised if Khalil Davis doesn't make the team. Guys who didn't practice: Christian Harris, Will Anderson, Jeff Okudah, Charlie Heck. I think this is probably it for Charlie Heck. He's had injury after injury. It's a shame because he's such a big dude. I was looking at him today and he wasn't wearing pads, and he's a big guy. I thought there was potential there for him, and he's just been beleaguered by injuries. Tim Settle, Tegan Cotoriano, MJ Stewart, Noah Brown, Danico Autry. I did not consciously take a look at the new fullback or even notice if he was out there today. But that's another thing. Look, the Texans signed a fullback whose name escapes me right this moment from the Jets. But Troy Harrison whiffed really bad on the play coming out of the end zone that was almost a safety. Really, really bad. I think right now Andrew Beck is what they're hoping can be their fullback, but I don't know exactly what his health status is or is going to be. So if they want to use a fullback, for now it's a combination of if the new guy works out and then your tight ends just lining up as H-backs. And we're getting to the point too, I think I'd make this point where I've noticed the last couple of days, I'm getting to that point in camp where I'm kind of agitated, and I'm realizing like, okay, I need to see these guys play actual football games. Let me plug my computer in. Noticing the battery is very, very low. And I'm starting to worry about every little thing. And then I go back out to practice today, and I'm like, okay. They got a lot of really talented football players out here. The money positions that matter the most, and I mean that literally, like the positions that get paid the most money because they matter the most, all because they either work with because they affect the quarterback so much. So quarterback, I feel good about that. Offensive tackles, I feel good about them. I know some people are nervous about Titus Howard, and I think a lot of that is based on a fear of how he plays at guard versus how he plays at tackle. He's a completely different guy as a guard than he is as a tackle. And there are a lot of tackles that just are not naturally good guards. It's even though tackles are more highly sought after, it's a different position. He's going to be just fine at tackle. Defensive end, Daniil Hunter, he's a freak in nature. He's just a freak. So he's fun to watch. Will Anderson, I'm starting to get a little bit nervous about. This being a lingering ankle issue, and now he's had multiple ankle injuries between last year and this year. People bring up Steph Curry a lot, because remember Steph Curry had ankle issues early in his career, and he figured it out. It worked out all right for Steph Curry. I don't know if you noticed as you weren't buying tickets to attend NBA championship games, but it worked out pretty well for Steph Curry, much to the detriment of the Houston Rockets. So I'm putting a pin in that. The cornerbacks, I feel Lassiter picked off CJ once early in the practice today. He had another PBU that was really nice over the middle. Tank Dell beat him once. It's like that with Lassiter. He's battling against really good receivers, and sometimes he wins and sometimes they win. So it's a perfect blend there. Wide receiver, obviously, I feel good about. Those are the biggest. Did I hit all of the highest paid positions in the NFL? That's pretty much it. Defensive backs, defensive ends, offensive tackle, quarterback. Running backs are at the opposite end of the spectrum these days, not paid much at all. Hold on a second while I... Come on, you. You son of a bitch. I'm still here. Fuck it. We'll make it. I'm over 30 minutes anyway, but I wanted to take some questions. Hold on one sec. Okay. Look, you guys all hung with me through that? It's probably more entertaining. All right. I apologize to anybody. I'm just going to pick these at random and scroll down. I'll ignore the ones that I can't answer, or I'll acknowledge that I can't answer them. So we'll start from latest to earliest. Which position are we most screwed at if the starters get hurt? Quarterback not included. That's a really good question. I think linebacker all right, wide receiver, there's plenty of depth. And remember, I think the gauge here is on offense, I want to be an elite offense. Cornerback. The depth at cornerback when you have an awesome player in Derek Stingley, but who's missed time to injury and or illness every year since 2019. That's probably where I'd be most nervous about. If you want to be elite, it's that right now, I don't know how good it is after Lassiter, and Lassiter's still an unknown, even though we're bullish on him. I think CJ Henderson provides you with a lot of the things that you really need, and you can maybe, depending on what the matchups are, you can protect him a little bit, but he has the athleticism. He's, people in Atlanta felt like he was better than they expected him to be. It might just click for him here in Houston. But I'd be nervous about cornerback because of a combination of the depth, but also the injury history of Derek Stingley. So we'll see about that. Is it the same issue from the end of last year? Is it something newer? I don't okay, so I don't know if it's the same type of injury, but it's not I don't think it was lingering. He was fine during OTAs, and he was fine at the beginning of camp. So, if you mean, like, is it the same one? I don't know if it's the same, like, named injury, what type of a sprain it is or anything like that, but it's not like I don't think he's had the issue the whole time through. I'd be surprised if that. I heard some former players say our current offensive line coach wasn't good. I'm a little concerned our issues running the ball, maybe because it's poor teaching. So Chris Strausser had never coached in a system like this before. And you might ask, like, okay, well, then why did they hire him? This is where it gets dicey with hiring position coaches sometimes. The problem is everybody's under contract at any given time. So it's always a matter of, all right, who's available and and then what are his contract expectations and everything like that. The really good guys are very often employed. That's why Jeff Stoutland, the offensive line coach for the Eagles, has been there through 3 head coaches. Every new head coach comes in and they're like, oh, we already have a really good offensive line coach. Hell yeah, we'll keep him. Stoutland's first job, his first year as an offensive line coach, was when I was at Cornell. And I think I was a junior at the time. And Stoutland got the job as an offensive line coach, didn't know what the hell he was doing at all, but like worked his ass off. And he's still, guys from my team, offensive linemen from my team still talk to him. Like, he just loves his players. Like, you find a guy like Stoutland, you keep him. He's just an awesome guy. Strauss, but as far as Strausser goes, yeah, I mean, it's a possibility. It's a possibility, and we just don't know. And that's when the rubber meets the road. At some point, these are the hard decisions that the coaches have to make. D'Amico and Bobby Slowick, and like if that's what they feel is the issue, then that's going to be the issue. We'll give it a little bit though. The other thing to remember too is that, like, with Kyle Shanahan offenses, and I'm going to bring up Kyle Shanahan, not because I think Bobby Slowick's trying to be exactly like him or whatever, but there are a lot of similarities there. And this style offense has been very effective. I saw somebody yesterday say that we need to stop trying to be like San Francisco. And I don't know why on earth you wouldn't want to be like San Francisco. They're the top 3 offense, top 3 defense, consistently competitive year after year with taking forever to find their quarterback till they stumbled into the guy who's probably the guy as a 7th round pick. It just they did what the San Francisco 49ers have been able to do. They've had the same issue the Colts have had, which is they put together a really good roster, but they couldn't find their quarterback, except the San Francisco 49ers went to a Super Bowl along the way and were really competitive every year. So I don't have any issue at all. It's not the problem with trying to emulate. Sorry, let's see. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't have left that up there. That was thank you though. It feels egotistical that I left it up there. Yeah, I know. Some of us are more cold-hearted about this than others. Right? It's not no emotional bond as a fan with any of the players. Oh, come on, man. Come on, Mark Passaval. Yeah, look, you can't walk through this life completely emotionally unaffected by things. Allow yourself to feel, man. Allow yourself emotional attachments to people that you don't actually know whether you'd like them in real life or not. It's all part of the illusion of it all, man. None of this crap matters, but you got to convince yourself that it does. And liking these players, many of whom are very genuinely likable, and especially when they like the way Damien Pierce runs. How can you watch Damien Pierce 2 years ago and not think like, oh man, yes, this is the kind of guy I want on my football team. In this miserable year that is 2022, where nothing was going right, we felt like we didn't know who was actually running the team or anything else along those lines. That we have this young Damien Pierce. Like, just allow yourself to feel, man. You're gonna close yourself off emotionally, and one day you're gonna be laying on your deathbed, and you're like, oh, I wish I'd allowed myself to love Damien Pierce. Because yes, it will hurt it'll hurt if it doesn't turn out and they move on from him, even though it's the right decision. But at least you felt something, man. Worried about you. Life is short. Care about shit. Sometimes it's easier not to care about stuff, but you gotta pick and choose. If you care about football, then care about the players. I feel the exact opposite. I've been pulling for DP. I think most people do, Rainer. I don't think, or Reiner, excuse me. Reiner LaRue. That's a hell of a name. Good for you and your parents. That's a good job. That's an elegant name right there. Reiner LaRue. If it's not your real name, then sorry. Tremendous attitude and all his public appearances, even struggling last year. I want that dude to succeed. No, I will not do that. You know what the problem with that character from The Office was? Is that there's so many dudes exactly like him, Andy from The Office. That nobody was more annoyed with Andy from The Office, constantly citing Cornell, than myself. I feel like you should never mention the school you went to conspicuously whatsoever, unless it's actually relevant to the situation, which with Jeff Stoutland it was. Damn it. Got lost. I got lost in my emotional plea for people to care about. Took Justin Simmons and others a couple of years to get used to playing safety, and a lot of guys don't start peaking till 4 years in. It's a heady position, man. You know, like with Jalen. I mean, Jalen, I think his best role is how they're going to use him this year, but they are going to use him as a safety, most likely a good chunk. And it's a lot of judgment. You know, it's a lot of knowing when to play it safe. It's a lot of knowing when to jump a route. One of the big things I remember talking to Wade Phillips about this was we were watching a play and he was telling me, well, it's the safety screws up here. I was like, well, yeah, but isn't the cornerback supposed to be there? He's like, yeah, but the safety screws up. The safety's job is to make it right. So if the cornerback's on the wrong guy, and even if it's Randy Moss out there, and there's no time to get the cornerback right, then the safety's got to go cover Randy Moss. So yeah, it was the cornerback's fault, but it's the safety's job always to get things right, even if it means filling in. It's kind of like when a restaurant manager has to fill in as a fry cook. If you're stuck without a fry cook, and you can't be sitting there, reading your management books about how to lead by whatever. You got to step in and be a fry cook. Yeah, that's we talked about this probably before you got on. That's been the common theme. That's what I've felt since I had the questions all off season long. This is long standing on Payne and Pendergast. I told Sean I have when it comes to athletes changing their body weights, I'm all for it if their body weight needs a changing. If you're a fat guy that's vomiting between series, if you're really skinny and you just don't have power, then by all means mess with your body weight. But if things are going really well and you're winning the angriest run of the year award and stuff like that, and you lose some weight and all of a sudden you're a different player, then get the hell back to where you were. What we were talking about this morning, because Verlander was pitching today, was Verlander. The instructive advice that Justin Verlander could give to Damien Pierce. Whenever Verlander, not whenever, but a lot of times when Verlander has struggled, he goes back and he'll watch film from years ago at times, from the year before, sometimes 3 or 4 years ago or whatever, and just look at what he was doing when things were going really well. He'll go back to a really good stretch, and sometimes it dawns on him like, oh, yeah, like I was whatever mechanically he was doing different. I don't know. Like I moved away from that for whatever reason. I got to get back to doing that. I mean, with Damien, I think it could be as simple as you go back and look what was working really well on a bad team in 2022. The most obvious, like the most glaringly obvious thing was that he was a heavier guy and he ran with power and he could be decisive because he wasn't worried about whether or not the lane was perfect or the hole was perfect. He was just going to bust through it. And he just doesn't have that power right now. I think we all worked all the way through. All right, so tomorrow, practice with the Rams. And I know we didn't. I know we didn't get everything. I apologize to anybody that I missed. Oh, here's Mark. Okay, we got it. I'm 68 years old. No time to lose to see the Texans win a Super Bowl. But Mark, don't you want to? If the Texans win a Super Bowl, though, don't you want to at least care about some of the players? I'm not saying, okay, this is where the disconnect might be, by no means am I saying that you should ever let sentimentality creep into your decisions about who to keep or not. But as a coach or a GM, what I worry about is that you have to be constantly on guard that you're not having your decisions be affected by your sentimentality. So all I'm saying is, it sucks. I want to win a Super Bowl too, obviously, but it doesn't make it easier to say goodbye to people that you like. Like, one of the beautiful things about having a team like the Texans that's as deep as it is this year is that there's going to be roster cuts with a lot of guys that I'm like, maybe they can keep him on practice squad. Yeah, that's life. I'm not saying that they should keep him around just because he's a swell guy. So I think you and I are on the same page. But it's okay to love Damien Pierce. It's not like Damien turned into a jerk or something. It's not like he or stopped trying or stopped working or anything like that. I think he just stopped eating enough food. I think he's malnourished. And I would never criticize somebody for being malnourished. My God. So that's where I am with Damien Pierce. Practice with the Rams tomorrow. I'm excited to watch this. And then I'm going to be on Greg Rosenthal's podcast. And I have no idea what's going on with NFL media or the former Around the NFL podcast, which I used to love going on. They'd have me on about once a year. And I was supposed to go on with them like 2 days before they canceled the show. But other than that, that's what I'll be doing tomorrow. And I hope to have some good and positive reports. I hope Matt Stafford practices a good amount. Really love Kamari Lassiter to get some experience versus a really good non-Daniel Jones quarterback. You know, you think about this. This could be the first non-Daniel Jones, non-Texans quarterback that Kamari Lassiter sees in the NFL. So that might be as welcome to the NFL moment is when he's facing non-Daniel Jones wearing a different colored uniform. So that's exciting. I'd be very surprised if Puka Nacua is out there, unfortunately. So we won't get to see Puka Nacua, but some very good players on the Rams should be competitive. I'm Seth Payne, et cetera, et cetera. Some of you had asked about my weight loss stuff that I said I was going to talk. I talked about it at the end of yesterday's live stream. I tried to do it in like 3 minutes. So if you're curious, I don't want to be the person that's talking about his diet all the time. I do that with my wife.